So we have reached the day that it is time to sew these pieces together. Firstly, take a deep breath. All we're going to need right now is a needle, some stitch markers, some scissors, your front panels, your back panel, and some yarn to sew it up with. Grab all of those bits and let's get started. So the most important bit is, I would say, is to start with your back panel and lay it out so that it is got the wrong side facing you. Just going to show, this table is not big enough for this. So I have a neck bit here. Let's start with that so we can see. So how can you tell which is the right side and which is the wrong side? Have a look at the back of these stitches. These are the wrong side of the stitches. And this is the right side or the pretty side. So this is the wrong side. This is the right side. Obviously you should have no ends, so that's not going to help you anymore. And then it needs to do the same. Have the wrong side against the wrong side. So the right side is facing you. So again, this is my V-neck panel here. So this is the right side facing me on the fabric here. It's also the right panel. So I'm going to pop that, move this over here, and we're just matching up your shoulders. Let me just rotate that a little bit so you can see all I'm doing is just matching up the shoulders and the neck. And I'm going to grab a stitch marker just to secure those two bits together at the same point, both at the shoulder shaping and at the top of the neck. I'm then going to repeat that for the left panel. So make sure that I have the right side facing me, and what you'll notice is that your cables will all be going in the same direction if you've got both of the right sides facing you. And once again, I'm just going to pin the shoulder shaping together and pin it together at the neck. At this point, everything should be pretty much in line. If that was sitting correctly, it would be. So right at the top, you should have your shoulders here. And then I would count along your stitches and pin the top of your neck in place as well, so that you know that you've marked those in the right place too. So we're just going to count along, pairing these stitches off. And we just repeat that on both sides. For matching up the stitch counts, it means you're not going to have any bunching up over the shoulders, and they will sit perfectly. You can opt to leave an opening at the side. That is entirely up to you. I'm not. I'm going to be sewing the whole way up here. And I'm just going to start on this side. I don't need to pin these together because I'm going to be joining them. But if you are opting to leave a bit of a gap at the side, check which row it is, match it up to the row behind, and then pin them together, and then pin the other side together the same number of rows. You can have a final look and make sure that it's all matching and paired perfectly, and then we are ready to get sewing. So once you have made sure that everything's pinned together, you've got all the same sides facing the right way, we are ready to sew up. Now I'm just going to attach a length of yarn to my darning needle that is as long as the length I'm going to join twice over. And the reason I say twice is just gives you a bit to play with, and we are using a technique called mattress stitch. I'm trying to get it so you can actually see the bottom of my pattern here, bottom of my project, sorry. I'm just making sure that my rows are lined up. I love sewing up patterns that have the same stitch, but they're worked in different rows, because it makes it much easier to check that you're in the right place And also we've pinned the top, so that's not going to be a challenge. So once you have the length that you need, so once you've got your two ends, you can just go straight through your two edges so that they begin level. You can't see what I'm doing, but I'm just pulling it up so that I have a tail left. And then we are ready to actually start sewing. Now I do sew with my left hand, so there's only one version of this video. So we're going to go back in and up through the stitch and bring that all the way through, and hope I haven't put a knot in my yarn, and just pull it until it's straight. And then with your two panels together, we then come in and up through the next stitch on the other side. It'll be easier when these ends have disappeared. And as you pull it taut, it completely disappears. So then we go in through the next. Ooh. And then in through the same on the other side. And as you pull it together, it disappears. You can't see that green at all, and it's more visible on the wrong side. You don't have to take that long about it. You can obviously, once you get confident as to where you're placing your needle, you can just pull it a bit and then go across to the other side of your pattern and oops, just work through that. Oh, sorry, it's a bit hard when you're doing this on camera. And then as you pull through, it all just disappears. You go through the next one, and then through the next on the other side. I kind of do a row at a time and then reassess, making sure that it's all seamed together. I think this is where this yarn comes into its own, because obviously it's a bit sticky. And as you pull, it just disappears into your pattern. That's because that's loose at the bottom. And you can't see where that join is. You can see it occasionally on the wrong side, but that's why we do the mattress stitch with the right side facing us. So we're just going to continue to sew up using the mattress stitch. I'll be honest, it's easier on a flat surface than me trying to hold it up. Going through one side and then the other, and as you get quicker, you can pick up your stitch and then pull just to make sure it disappears. Now I've done wrong there, obviously, because I can see that and I don't want to. But it's not, you know, that's why it is important to keep doing it in small sections, and that time it's not visible. And that's what we're looking for. So we do need to take our time. There's no rushing this, because we don't like it because it takes time, but at the same time, we want it to look good. So we have to take our time to make sure that happens. So continue on working up. Remember that as you work up and you pull your seams together, you will see even less if there is any colour showing. So don't go too tight without needing to, and continue working up your first side up to where your shoulder mark is, which in my case is all the way up here. And then I'm going to join you to sew this, and then we're going to go on. It's sewn across our shoulders. I'm going to show you how to join your sleeves. So I've just reached my last stitch on my seam, and I'm just going to do a final check all the way through that everything is nice and tightly seamed, apart from this last little bit. And you might think, oh, I've got a step, and I have. I've just come through the top of that last stitch. I'm not working through the stitch itself, so that's my stitch, because that's what I'm going to use to join my sleeve. So I'm going to come back underneath the other stitch, and that will put them at the same height. And then to finish, because this is my right side, I'm just going to push my needle back through to the wrong side, and then I can secure this. Do double check you've pulled properly all the way through so that both sides you have no loops. Obviously that's the other tail, because once you are secured, there is no going back. It is joined forever. So I'm going to make a knot, hopefully, if I can get this to work, just to secure, and then we are ready to join and sew together our shoulders. So once we are ready to sew our shoulders together, we don't need anywhere near as much yarn for our shoulders, and it's going to be a lot easier to sew up because we are actually working through our stitches. So I'm going to come, this is the right side showing, we've got the wrong sides together, still got my other end pinned together, and I'm going through the back panel and coming out just to set my tail, and then I'm coming out from the wrong side out to the right side toward me of the front panel. And that's what we're repeating the whole way through. So we're going in from the wrong side out to the front side, the right side should I say, and the same on the other side. So we're coming out from the inside out to the front side, and we're just working the whole way along our stitches, just doing a little bit of a section here so you can then see what it looks like when effectively we pull it closed. And it feels like you're going to run out of yarn, but you really aren't. So from here you can see where I've done all that sewing. If I begin to pull it tight, the seam disappears. Pull it from both sides, and it interlocks those two edges, and you cannot see the yarn that has been used to join them. So continue across, sewing up your shoulder in that same fashion. So you can see that's where the yarn's coming out. So this will be the next one. That's why I leave it loose, because it's easier to get into those stitches. And we're just going to, oh, did that wrong there. Keep going out from the inside out. Just taking off my final stitch marker to come out of that final stitch and then work that final one. Now I have not pulled this tight yet, but it's completely woven in. Make sure that your shoulder has not been pulled in by you tightening that yarn. So you'd have a nice seamed shoulder and sewn up all the way up one side. All we have to do now is to repeat that process on the other side before we can join our sleeves. So go ahead and sew up your next side and your next shoulder, and I'll meet you to join our sleeves shortly. Okay, so let's pretend I've sewn the other side of my cardigan. I haven't, and pretend that I've woven my end in. I will come back to that. So let's add on our sleeve. Push this out of the way. With the widest point of your sleeve, I'm going to fold mine in half, because the first thing we need to do, we're going to mark the 2 stitches in the center of the widest point of our sleeve. So I'm going to pin it in half. Well, I'm going to fold it in half and mark what I think are the two stitches, and then I'm going to count to double check. I'm going to place a stitch marker each side of where that fold is for the middle, and I'm going to check I've got the same number of stitches on each side. Well, that was lucky. I do exactly have the right number. And we are then going to pin these 2 stitches either side of where our seam is for our shoulder. Now obviously that's not secured yet for me. So we're going to grab our cardigan, and this is my shoulder seam where my tail is coming out. And I'm going to pin, obviously, make sure you have the right side of your sleeve facing. So check the back of your stitches and make sure you've got the right side facing. And we're going to attach to either side of our seam, which is easier said than done on camera, of course. So that's 1 and 2. So we have a stitch either side of our seam, And then on the other side, we have to kind of flip our cardigans over and our sleeve to find our ends. We're then going to pin these openings to each side, again just making sure that you folded it so that the right side is facing. We're going to pin the sleeve ends to each side of our joining seam. I'm going to do one at a time to make my life easy. So I'm just going to pin this first one to this edge through the stitch and just to the stitch at the side of the seam, like so, and then the other edge is going to go into that next stitch there. Now once we have attached that bit, we're going to make sure we've got the right placement for this bit into the corner of our shoulder. Now, depending on which size you are making, you're going to count across, including your pinned stitch. For extra small and small, you're going to count to the 8th stitch across. Medium, large, extra large and 2XL are going to find the 12th stitch, and then 3, 4 and 5XL are going to find their 16th stitch across, and we're going to pin that to that stitch just in that corner. So you can see that that's going to be stitched onto there before we carry on evenly stitching up to where we have the next stitch marker. So we're going to repeat that on the other side of our sleeve, counting from this open edge up to that 8th, 12th or 16th stitch, depending on which size you are making. And pinning it into that last stitch on that shaping the shoulder. And we are then simply going to sew all the way along, working through these stitches. Up to you which side of your cardigan you start. And obviously we do need to sew our sleeve up. You need quite a length of yarn for this, depending on how big your sleeve is. Mine's an extra large, so it needs quite a lot. And again, I'm going to use the mattress stitch, and I'm just going to start in that first, this first stitch. So I can remove that first marker, leave all the other markers in place. It's a little bit fiddly to show you this bit, so we're going to be using mattress stitch again. So we're going to come out of this stitch and have our tail, and then we've got that first stitch after our seam, and we're just coming from the inside out, working through that stitch. So we're going to continue to work across, joining where we shaped for the shoulder and into our sleeve, using the mattress stitch just as we did before. So working through our stitch and then back out the other side, and just making sure we work through each stitch to give a nice join. There we are. So I've worked across those first few stitches. I'm going to remove this next marker, and then and then we have stitches to work on this side, and of course we have no stitches on this side because we're working up the edge. So this is why we've pinned the shoulder together here, so that we can make sure that we're working evenly across this stretch. So we're just going to continue working through and coming back out of a stitch on the sleeve to help give a nice even look. And it's just one of those things we have to take our time, making sure that we're working evenly and adjusting our pattern and our cardigan as we join. You don't want there to be too much fabric when we've only got this many stitches to work. So we should have the same amount of fabric between those two markers, and it's just a case of working through them. You can have it positioned like that if that helps you to work through the stitches more evenly. Continue all the way up and I'll meet you at our next marker. So once we've reached that first stitch marker, we can take that out, and it's important to note you don't want this seam too tight or else it will bunch in around your shoulder, and we don't want that too much. So it should be tight, but not so tight that it's pulling in on the fabric. Mine is certainly not perfect, but it's hidden enough. I don't think anyone's going to notice too much. So we're going to continue on working around. When you get to your seam, like I have here, we're just continuing over and through that next stitch, burying that one in as well. We can remove the next marker and continue all the way down, working through those stitches and your edge. Then there's just a nice bit left to do at the bottom, working through both those edges on your shoulders, and I'll meet you once you've worked all the way around. Oh my God. Once you've attached your sleeve all the way around, the last thing to do is to seam your sleeve using the mattress stitch in the same way that we've just done, but you should have a nice join all the way around that's not too bunched. Your shoulder is joined. I've just tied these ends at the base here, ready to join my sleeve. I'm going to work from the top all the way down to the bottom, just because it's easier to make sure that they are at the same point. So go ahead and seam your sleeve, of course, attach your other sleeve as well, and then it's entirely up to you whether or not you leave this raw edge or you simply work a row of single crochet around the front. I am not going to opt to do that. I like the look of this raw edge. I know not everybody does, and my tester, I'll pop a picture in here for you. My tester did add an edging onto her cardigan and it looks great, but I just love that raw edge. Very pleased with this seam. From the inside, you can see you've got a definite seam here, and that's why we work it on the right side of our project. But yeah, we have an armhole, we have a sleeve. I just need to sew it up. I want to thank you if you've been taking part in the cable and crossed cardigan crochet along. It's been an absolute pleasure showing you how to make your very own cable and cross cardigan. I will see you in the next video.